So welcome back. I've completely forgotten what number episode this is, but hey, it will say in the doobly-doo, so it doesn't matter. Alternatively, it'll be on your podcast. I'm good at these. So this time we're talking about the changes to Bonesaw and Casket. Bonesaw, fair to say, not the most popular of models.
That's one way of putting it.
I think he's actually always been super popular. People talk about him all the time.
Connor, we've spoken quite a lot in the past about why a 50mm base 1-inch model was bad. Would you like the floor for your little rant on this now?
Well, I think just Bonesaw's problem was basically everything he did to get to average he had to pay for.
Yeah.
So his health pool was costed like he was already a defense 5 striker.
Yep.
But he only got it when he scored.
Mm-hmm.
And he also, on a 50mm base, was really struggled to get to the ball. And so his way around that, he also had to pay for. So the problem with the 50mm base was if you are playing someone who's killing the ball and they just like hide it in a clump, he just couldn't get to it. Like he physically could not get his base through people blocking the way. And if you didn't have a momentum for the heroic, which often you don't when you're trying to get the ball and score, he just couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And they fixed those two major issues.
Also, I think it's fair to say that once Ratcatchers came along, that his signature kicking character play and meditation largely meant nothing, because it was purely during his activation that he got to roll dice. He got to re-roll dice on his kick.
Yeah, it was some nice counter synergy with Rats there.
Yeah. So looking at his Season 4 card, and this is certainly one of the big ones in terms of changes, he's actually, at first glance, has gotten slower. His 6'8" move going to a 5'7". His attack's gone up to a 5. Then everything else has pretty much stayed the same. I lie, because offensively defensive is now just built in. He's a 5A model, which I think you make a very good point when you talk about the model being costed with 12 wounds as if he was already a 5A model. Well, now he is. I mean, he's still the easiest.
Yeah, I think we all saw that one coming.
Yeah, he's still the easiest striker in the game to crowd out just because of his base size.
Yeah.
But also he's the biggest turret in the game. So, those two kind of counteract each other. Meditation has changed so that it's purely his next kick, which is phenomenal for Piper and Reverie. That reroll will now impact him. Unexpected Arrival is an interesting one because that's gone one higher on his playbook. Whether or not that's counteracted by gaining an additional attack, I suppose that is the same math.
I'll check that. I'm curious.
You have a look at that. But I'm against a Strawman 4-1. Why don't farmers have a model called Strawman? Oh, come on! That's a missed opportunity, surely. Jack Straw should have been called Strawman. That's brilliant. And he's now the tackle dodge has gone up from 4. Sorry, tackle double dodge has gone up from 4 to 5. So some playbook results have shifted around. But the big thing's really, one, Swift Wind is pretty much baked in all the time, so he can move over model spaces. You can still pay the momentum to glide if you want. He still has Slippery, offensively, defensively baked in, and Football Dervish, an ability which allowed him to maneuver around, has ostensibly replaced by Stamina, which I'm a big fan of because it doesn't require me to roll dice. So
yeah, Football Dervish was next to impossible to get mileage from.
I mean, it
was also probably the most fun thing on his card, so I'm kind of sad to see it go.
I mean, I did get mileage out of it. This is something I've had in a conversation with Jamie and Steve in the developer interview that we've done for this. But on the very rare occasions that Bonesaw was in my lineup, it automatically meant that Dirge and Silence were in my lineup because I wanted that 4-7 kick from Silence, because that made it, at least part way reliable. I mean, hang on, I'm gonna have to double check now that it did give 4/7.
So while you're doing that, the odds of Bonesaw
it did.
hitting the
Yeah.
unexpected arrival on the charge against our mythical 4/1 is 50%.
Okay.
And previous Bonesaw was 64%.
Oh,
So he's actually
that's-
quite a bit less likely to hit it on the
that
charge.
is
And
quite
he's
a-
never going to hit it with an attack anyway.
No, never. Unless it's against, I don't know, a farmer, a knocked down Grange maybe.
Oh man, when he does hit the wrap to it against a 2-0 model that's been like knocked down, slashed, armor removed from vet graves, and you just 8-inch push something off the board though. Oh man, oh god, one day.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. It's fair
I
to
can't
say,
comment because the playtest I lost 2 players to unexpected arrival because it was really unexpected.
It was. I did it to Vitriol. I did it to Vitriol and Crucible, didn't I?
Yes, you did. You hideous NPE.
Fantastic.
Lol. It's fair to say Bonesaw is a lot better.
Yeah.
With the momentum for kicking, with the momentous tackle on 1, like Bonesaw kickoffs are actually a thing.
Yeah.
Because with his ability to just walk over you and go 12 inches, he can get to you. Like he can and probably will get to you. Of course, he's still a 1-inch model, so he's going to have all of the problems that 1-inch models have. But threat range is not one of them.
No.
He is so fast now.
If he kicks off, you have to get that ball. There's no 2 ways about it, because otherwise he's going to get that.
And that's really interesting, because as a Morticians player, if I'm kicking off, it's obvious.
Or Scalpel.
Or Scalpel, or very rarely one of the big fellas, because I want them further up the pitch early. But to have a legitimate, albeit not quite traditional manner of doing a kickoff threat, and what's more Morticians than doing it in a slightly weird way. Bonesaw's going to see play now. He is 100% back in my roster, purely because all of the things that he did before that were cool but required dice now don't require dice. He goes further. His meditation works outside of his activation, which, all right, we talked about in terms of Reverie, but that could equally be Puppet Master or I'm Open from Brain Pan. He's legitimately a thing, I think, now.
Yeah, and he's a thing you take on his own merits, as opposed to, let's be frank, he used to appear in rosters, but only as some kind of dare among top-tier Morticians players. I'll be the one to make him work. No, he's just awful.
I'm still curious if I would prefer the momentous dodge on 1, momentous tackle on 2, rather than the momentous tackle on 1 with no momentous dodge until 2. But that's generally just a thing I can never decide on which I'd prefer on strikers. So I think he's
there has to be a downside.
I'm not even sure if it is a downside. Having the non-momentous dodge on 1 is interesting. And having 1 damage on 2. I feel like how a brewer's playbook is when you've got tack longer than the playbook by 1. Yeah. I feel like we need a name for the tackle and dodge on 1s, like a Scatha book or something.
I'm amazed it didn't say Angel then. I'm like, we didn't have a room.
No, because she still, I believe she still has 1 damage on 1.
I don't know what's been announced and what hasn't.
I also just don't really remember.
It's fish. What do you mean? I'm just amazed you don't know it off pat immediately.
So let's have a look at Casket, a model which never leaves my lineup, and if he does, I lose. I love Casket. He is a phenomenal toolbox, and he has one very, very small change in terms of wording, which has a phenomenal impact on his presence on the pitch. First of all, it's worth noting that he still has Casket time. So Snack Break may have gone, Gravedigger may have gone, Casket time remains, and I'm very, very pleased about that. However, there is one subtle change to Casket Time that is not mentioned on these cards, but is rather in the rulebook. So that is, if you are in a position to bring a model back onto the pitch, you must bring a model back onto the pitch. So there will no longer be situations where at tournaments, Timmy, are you listening? If you've got half of your team taken out, you can't just not bring them back on and clock your opponent. That is no longer a thing. However, to counteract that, if for whatever reason you cannot bring a model back onto the pitch, and I am reliably assured by those that, let's be honest, write the game, Casket Time is the only thing that will ever cause that to happen, you still gain the model's influence. So this is a minor nerf for Casket Time when, if like me, your favourite thing in the world is putting Grange in the box. And
I'm not sure it's that minor. I think this is a pretty substantial nerf.
I think, well,
I mean, I think Casket Time's still really, really good, and I still think you're going to see Casket a ton.
100%.
But it's pretty big.
I think the main thing about it is, whilst I find telling, let's be honest, Dom, that he's not having 5 influence for Grange next turn, that is legitimately an MPE. Like, that is 100% not fun for my opponent. And I'm fine with that no longer being in the game. Because it's, you know, if Snack Break is gone, if Gravedigger is gone, Casket Time in many ways has been buffed through exclusivity.
That's a fair point.
You know, this is, I've no idea about Bear Hug. I'm going to, like, if Bear Hug was no longer a thing, I wouldn't be surprised. I'll put it that way, because that seems to be the way the wind's blowing. Again, I've got Ben, you're the order player. What's Brisket's I gain an additional VP character play for scoring?
With a plum.
With a plum, thank you. Like, if that's the only thing that makes goals worth more points, right? So that has exclusivity, and that makes it cool. Scather's new snowball that we've seen on the blog has exclusivity and is therefore cool. And I would suggest the same thing of Casket Time now that we've seen Snack Break and Gravedigger. Bear Hug, I suppose Witness Me as well. Those are the only other 2 things that sort of stand in its way of exclusivity, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I think it's fair to say. The big change, I think, for me, is the change to Foul Odor. And the fact
that's big.
And the fact that this now only impacts enemy models.
Thank God.
Oh, this makes my setup for kickoff so much easier. Because like half of my clock on kickoff was working out where I was putting Casket and therefore where I was putting everyone else around him. Which was
the bright side was at least you had Memory and Dirge. The poor Union players couldn't do anything around Fangtooth.
Oh, of course, that's going to affect Fangers as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because with brain Memory just dodged everywhere and Dirge ignored it. But now I don't care. I absolutely do not care. So with Ghostly Visage, which I still think is one of the most underrated character plays in the game. Yes, it's gone to 2 inches now, but it is to the edge of the AoE rather than to the center, so side grade at best. It's still -2 attack on the charge. It's still -4 move on the charge. It's a phenomenal charge protection piece. Hello, navigators. You like charging. Meet my friend Casket.
I've seen you put 3 of these things out before now.
Oh,
you say that, but
they're not one per turn, and they're one infants. They're amazing. Sorry, Connor, go on. Talk about fish.
It's not just navigators, though. I think it's pretty clear Steamforged has made a concentrated effort to make charging more valuable, because it's almost always the wrong thing to do. So, like, if you look at Vet Cinder and New Sledge, those are models that get a ton of value from every one of their AP, and they get a lot of value from charging. So if you can stay out of their walk and hit range and put one of these down, their killing power falls off a lot.
Yep.
if they have to sprint.
Equally countercharge. Like if
Yeah.
I've moved a model within 6 of brick or of tater or compound or whatever.
That's happened to me a few times.
And now you can't reach me because of foul loader and ghastly visage, because your charge is now in the minus figures, if that's even possible. So the ability to move Casket and colleagues, I was going to say friends, but I'm not sure that's the right word, around in the centre of pitch and construct what I like to refer to as the Mort Fort is going to be considerably easier. And as a sort of dedicated Casket player, those the tiny little changes on him make him amazing. Still only brings 1 influence.
Also, in a game where movement debuffs have been like really getting reduced from 4 to 2 inches, or in Shark's case from like 8 to 4, the fact that he can still throw out a ranged -4 move is just bonkers.
Which one are you referring to?
Especially if they're in the aura, and it's like, okay, now you're -6 move. Good luck.
Which of his -4 movement debuffs are you referring to there, Connor?
Oh, heavy burden.
And Ghostly Visage. This is a model that can reduce your charge by 10 inches. Lol.
I mean, in theory. He'd have to be within 6 inches of you to do heavy burden.
Yeah.
But it can shut you down from getting to the ball behind the line or something. Casket is excellent, and he's still excellent, and you're still going to see him a ton.
And this is like when I first started doing Don't Touch the Beard all those halcyon days ago, when I regularly put out videos.
I don't remember those days. Do you?
I've got one coming.
Honest.
24. I know it's 4 months overdue, but there we are. Like when I was brand new, wet behind the ears, knew nothing about Guild Ball, or less, should we say? You go with internet wisdom, and people going, "Oh, Casket's bad." Why? Why would you ever think Casket is bad? He is a phenomenal toolbox.
Whoever thought Casket was bad?
Who has MVP'd so many of my matches. I adore him. Absolutely adore him. And right, he's TAC 5, but with Go for the Knees, which is certainly a card that I keep a very close eye out for in my hands at the beginning of games. At TAC 6, and we're tooled up for the momentous 3 on 2. People are going in the box, and then they can stay there. And he's one of those models also. It's a bit like Hoist, where people have just decided that he's unkillable. So people don't try.
Yeah, one of the key things for me about that Ghostly Visage is that it's the Morticians model. If the Mortician is in the AoE, then it's effective. So you can't get round it by kind of coming in a different way, like some of the Molotov things or Sticky Bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if I'm not in it, well, Scalpel can now move me, so I am.
Yep.
Phenomenal piece. I look forward to playing Casket as much as I am doing now, which is every game. Cool. Right, we shall stop there and come back to discuss my other favourite and stalwart member of my 6, Brain, Pen and Memory, someone who's been out of my roster for a very long time in the form of Ghast.